Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another C19 report. So before we get started, you already know what to do. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Smash the like button, share this video out to all of your followers, and let's get it cracking. All right, so shout out to everybody who is in the room. If you guys can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up or a radiation emoji in the chat. If you guys cannot hear me, give me a thumbs down or an angry face. All right. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to shout out everybody who is in the room early. All right. We got Sybil in the house. Shout out to Sybil. We got Carlton Way in the building. We got Andretti Too Cold in the house. We got Denise Scales in the building, and we got Crew Royalty. Shout out to y'all. It is good to see y'all. I'm glad to see y'all in here, man. appreciate y'all. All right. So we are going to talk about some interesting developments that took place in China. And I'm trying to decide other stuff that I could talk about, you know what I'm saying, later on, because there's been a lot of stuff going on, you know what I'm saying, but I don't be trying to overload y'all, you know what I'm saying? So, we'll see. And I got a stream planned for late night, so we'll see, you know what I'm saying? So there has been what's called a mycoplasma pneumonia outbreak, and it's mostly taking place in kids, and it started out in China. All right. Now, I saw a YouTuber talk about this yesterday. It was just yesterday. And this YouTuber was speculating whether there's been cases or signs of this going down in the United States. He didn't know. Apparently, there's a possibility that it could be going down here in the United States. We shall see. All right. Shout out to DC Precise. What's good with it? So we're going to check this out. This is an article from Nature. All right. And it says, what's behind China's mysterious wave of childhood pneumonia? Now, one of the biggest issues that people have with when this kind of stuff comes out of China is that a lot of people do not trust the Chinese health ministry. They feel that a lot of the information is skewed. They feel that a lot of the information is biased and one-sided. And in many cases, they don't report everything accurately. So, that may be here nor there. If you ask me, all governments are capable of that. So to assign that to China and not say that the United States is the same way is kind of unfair assessment. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, they're saying that this is a lot more complicated than what we're being led to believe. So my question for you guys is, how many people heard about this? If you guys heard about this, give me a thumbs up. If you guys did not hear about this, give me a thumbs down. What's behind China's mysterious wave of childhood pneumonia? Scientists expected a surge in respiratory disease, but what is happening in China is unusual. And it seems like that's always the case. And I want to actually ask you guys about that. Why is it that there's always something strange going on in China? There's always something strange. Always some strange stuff starts out in China, and then next thing you know, here we are dealing with it here in the United States. Why does that happen? You know what I'm saying? So what it says here is that China is grappling with a surge in respiratory illness, including pneumonia in children. The World Health Organization said last week that common winter infections, rather than any new pathogens, are behind the spike in hospitalizations. A surge of infections was expected in the country this winter, China's first without C19 restrictions since the pandemic began in 2020. What is unusual, say epidemiologists, now this is the important part, is the high prevalence of pneumonia in China. Okay. That is what they're saying is unusual. So that's the thing that we need to pay the most attention to. Shout out to Lloyd Sky 9. What's good with it? There's a lot of people that feel that way, Denise. There's a lot of people who believe that that is what the case is. You know what I'm saying? When the C19 restrictions were eased in other countries, influenza and respiratory syncytial, which is RSV, drove most spikes in illnesses. Now, here's my question. Why do you all think that that happened? Why was there a spike in those other illnesses after the C19 restrictions were released? The WHO requested information, including laboratory results and data on recent trends in the spread of respiratory illness from China's health authorities last week. This followed reports from the media and Program for Monitoring Emerging Diseases, a publicly available system run by the International Society for Infectious Diseases, about clusters of quote unquote undiagnosed pneumonia. Okay. Undiagnosed pneumonia. Now, in a November 23rd statement, the WHO said that China's health authorities have attributed to the rise in hospitalizations since October to known pathogens such as adenoviruses, influenza virus, and RSV, which tends to cause only mild cold-like symptoms. Okay. However, an increase in children being hospitalized since May, particularly in northern cities such as Beijing, is mainly due to Mycoplasma pneumoniae, a bacterium that infects the lungs. It is a common cause of walking pneumonia, a form of disease that is usually relatively mild and doesn't require bed rest or hospitalization. But that is hitting children hard this year. So see, we have a contradiction right here. We have a contradiction right here. In fact, shout out to Lloyd Sky 9. Lloyd Sky 9 says it's about to get Resident Evil up in here. Facts. See, the contradiction that we have is that the known pathogens don't cause severe symptoms. Only severe symptoms would get you put in the hospital. So that's a contradiction. There's an issue with that. You know what I'm saying? Benjamin Coling, an epidemiologist at the University of Hong Kong, is not surprised by the wave of illness. This is a typical winter surge in acute respiratory infections, he said. It is happening slightly earlier this year, perhaps because of increased population susceptibility to respiratory infections resulting from 3 years of C-19 measures. So now what they're saying is that there's a familiar pattern, okay? The rebound in common respiratory diseases during the first winter after the loosening of pandemic measures, such as mask wearing and travel restrictions, has been a familiar pattern in other countries. In November of 2022, the number of people hospitalized with flu in the United States was the highest that it had been for that time of year since 2010. Now, how many people knew about that? Now, here's my question. I want you guys to critically think about this. Why would there be a rise in hospitalizations immediately after C-19 restrictions have been lifted? Why would that happen? And real quick, shout out to everybody that's in here. If you guys haven't smashed the like button yet, please make sure that you guys take a moment, smash the like button wherever you're watching from. If you guys have not shared the stream to your social media, please take a moment, share the stream to your social media. Nationwide lockdowns and other measures implemented to slow the spread of C-19 prevented seasonal pathogens from circulating. So there goes your answer right there. The increased measures that were taken against C-19 also had this effect of stopping the other respiratory diseases. So with those restrictions lifted and people being more lax, those pathogens were free to be able to be spread from person to person. Okay. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a thumbs up. If it doesn't make sense, then give me a thumbs down. Shout out to Sybil. What's good with it, Sybil? Nationwide lockdowns and other measures implemented to slow the spread of C-19 prevented seasonal pathogens from circulating, giving people less opportunity to build up immunity against these microorganisms, a phenomenon known as immunity debt, said Francis Bellox, a computational biologist at University College London, in a statement to the UK Science Media Center. Since China experienced a far longer and harsher lockdown than essentially any other country on Earth, it was anticipated that those lockdown exit waves could be substantial in China, said Bellox. So now, does that make sense? Because China was locked down longer and China had a more harsh lockdown, the rebound of people not wearing masks and doing all the hand washing and Purell every couple seconds, that would cause a rebound wave of more infections because of the restrictions being lower. Okay. However, the Chinese wave of illness differs from that seen in other countries. Now, this is important too, right? Because again, the Chinese ministry said that this was a common pathogen, right? They said that this was a common pathogen. So if it's a common pathogen, then for the most part, the isolated organism as well as the symptoms should be similar to what's seen elsewhere. But apparently they're not. And if they're not, then that means that there's something else going on. Okay. Some nations grappled with flu and RSV infections during their post C19 winter surges. But in China, M. pneumoniae, which is mycoplasma pneumoniae infections, have been common. This is surprising because bacterial infections are often opportunistic and take hold of viral infections, says Cowling. So, what that could imply, that there's a underlying viral situation that's causing susceptibility to the mycoplasma bacteria that's causing this current wave of pneumonia. Okay, that's what that could mean. Although pneumonia caused by the bacterium is usually treated with antibiotics known as macrolides, and over-reliance on these drugs has led to the pathogen developing resistance. Okay. Now, you guys have heard about that, right? A lot of times the bacteria will develop a resistance to a commonly used drug for it. One of the most common examples of that is something like MRSA, methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. All right. Studies show that resistance rates of M. pneumoniae to macrolides in Beijing are between 70% and 90%. This resistance might be contributing to this year's high levels of hospitalizations from M. pneumoniae because it can hinder treatment and slow recovery from bacterial pneumonia infections, said Cowling. Winter surges are always a challenge, but healthcare systems in China are better placed to mitigate them now than they were before the pandemic, says Christy Jenkins, a respiratory physician at the UNSW Sydney in Australia. She says that better national disease monitoring systems, diagnostic tests, and measures for impending transmissions and preventing deaths are now in place. Jenkins adds that even if the infections are caused by known pathogens, it's important to track them closely to minimize the risk of a serious outbreak of disease. We are in a very different situation to C19, but I don't think that we can be complacent, she says. All right. So now you guys got a little bit of the background of what's going on. There is a wave of mysterious childhood pneumonia going on in China. All right. So now the CDC put out a statement. Okay. The CDC put out a statement because they got some crazy stuff going on there. Okay. In China. There's an article here from Newsweek that we're going to look at. And this article from Newsweek shows part of that craziness. These infections of pneumonia in China have been so bad that they have the kids in school hooked up to IVs in the hallway doing their classwork and doing their homework. I've never seen anything like that, but we're going to check it out. Okay. So here's a video of it right here. See, here's the title here. CDC speaks out over China's pneumonia outbreak as concerns grow. Now, this is a picture, if I'm not mistaken, of these of some Chinese people in school. You see how they got these IVs taped to the wall? These are IVs that are taped to the wall that are hooked up to people so they can do what they got to do while they're on IV antibiotics. That's insane. Hold on. I'm gonna cut that music off just in case they try to do a little copyright nonsense. But yeah, we're gonna run this back real quick so y'all can see this. Look at that. So it says right there, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is monitoring an outbreak of respiratory diseases causing pneumonia in children in China. Okay. David Daigle, a spokesperson for the federal agency, told Newsweek that it would continue to monitor the situation, collaborating with global health partners. So now the World Health Organization criticized China for not sharing adequate information about the rise in respiratory illness. So now I want to ask you guys this question. Why do you all think that they haven't shared the information? You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Vinny May over on Twitch. What's good with it? Yeah, and I agree. Them folks is definitely out of their mind. You know what I'm saying? Definitely out of their mind. So let's see what else they're talking about. Now, here it says China's National Health Commission attributed the increase in pneumonia to cases known to disease like influenza and C19. I mean, shout out to Lloyd Sky 9. This looks like Resident Evil. The WHO requested detailed information from China about the pneumonia clusters. And see, this is common right here. Like China's not being cooperative with providing the information, which is bad because if they don't have all the information that's necessary to protect the public from this is how that kind of thing spreads and starts to get out of control. You know what I'm saying? So now it says the WHO later stated that Chinese officials provided the requested information, attributing the hospital admissions to Mycoplasma pneumoniae. Now, the CDC concurred with the WHO's finding, noted that simultaneous increases in known respiratory illness. And I think that's about it. That's where we're going to end this at. Yeah, that's it. All right. So let's see what else they're talking about here. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is communicating with health officials in China as fears grow over an outbreak of infectious respiratory disease that has caused clusters of pneumonia among children in the north of the country. Okay. David Daigle, a spokesperson for the federal agency, told Newsweek that it would continue to monitor the situation, collaborating with global health partners over the increase in illness, and was in touch with local health authorities and its country office in China. The US CDC has collaborated with its Chinese counterpart for over 30 years on a range of diseases that circulate among the global population, including influenza and tuberculosis. Concerns were raised by the World Health Organization last week that China was not sharing adequate information with the international community about the rise in respiratory illnesses, which had been reported in the media on a global outbreak surveillance system, something it was previously criticized for in the early stages of the coronavirus pandemic. Okay, so now let me ask you guys a question. Do you all think that they're sharing the information? If you guys think that they're sharing the information, give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't think that they're sharing the information, give me a thumbs down. So now here it says earlier in the year, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus openly criticized China's lack of clarity over the immunological situation in the nation. Beijing has previously stressed that it has been open and transparent about its data. Now, here's the problem, right? When it comes to dealing with this kind of thing, you got to look at this kind of stuff in terms of past history. And they do not have a very good past history of being transparent. Their history does not really show them being transparent at all. What their history shows is that they don't practice transparency until the last minute. And then when the last minute comes, it's too late. So now here it says on Thursday, the WHO said in a statement that it had requested detailed epidemiological and clinical information, as well as lab results from the pneumonia clusters, but intimated that it had yet to receive a response. The week prior, officials from China's National Health Commission had attributed the increase in hospitalizations and cases of pneumonia to already understood diseases such as influenza and C19 rather than a novel pathogen. Respiratory illness tends to increase through the winter as the cold leads to an increased spread of viruses and other infections thanks to lower immunity levels. China also recently lifted its pandemic restrictions, which it ascribed to the increase in circulation of transmissible illnesses. However, Beijing's apparent opacity prompted some medical professionals to draw comparisons with the C-19 pandemic when it withheld information about the severity and extent of the outbreak and was accused of suppressing evidence of surges in deaths. So now here's my question for you guys. How many people were aware that China was doing that? If you guys were aware that China was withholding information about the C-19 outbreak in this fashion, give me a thumbs up. If you guys were not aware of that, then give me a thumbs down. They absolutely were doing that. And then what ended up happening was that here in the United States, it was difficult for people to criticize it. They were taking people's YouTube channels down. They were taking people's TikTok accounts down. All kinds of stuff was going down. All kinds of stuff was going down as a result of them not wanting people to be discussing this. You know what I'm saying? The following day, the WHO issued an update in which it said Chinese officials had provided the requested information with data indicating that elevated hospital admissions were due to Mycoplasma pneumoniae, a bacterial infection that predominantly affects children and elderly, respiratory syncytial virus, which causes cold-like symptoms, and viruses responsible for seasonal flus. Okay. The health agency said that some of the increases were earlier in the winter season than had occurred historically, but that this was not unexpected given the lifting of C-19 restrictions as similarly experienced in other countries. Daigle said the CDC concurred that initial reports indicate that there have been simultaneous increases in a number of known respiratory illnesses, resulting in a spike in hospitalizations. Now, keep this part in mind about this spike in hospitalizations, because we're going to get into that as it pertains to the United States. Okay. The CDC did not respond to questions from Newsweek about the outbreaks spreading to the U.S., whether any pneumonia clusters had been detected in America, or whether it was considering screening people traveling from China for respiratory diseases. All right. So now here's my question: do you guys think that should happen? They should screen people from China for respiratory diseases and all of that. Shout out to DeAndre. What's good with it, bro? If you ask me, again, as a result of what happened in the past, I don't think that that's a bad idea. You know what I'm saying? I think they absolutely should do that. Okay. So guess what? I don't know if this article will link this to what's going on in China, but guess what? There's a Mycoplasma pneumonia driving an outbreak in Ohio. There's an outbreak of Mycoplasma pneumonia in Ohio. Now, that's interesting, right? Because we just read two articles that attempt to verify that Mycoplasma pneumoniae is the pathogen that's causing the issues in China, right? Now, people are asking this question, well, has this spread to the United States? I don't know if there's a definitive answer to whether this has spread to the United States. However, it would be kind of naive to blow that off, because as we see right here, the same pathogen that's allegedly causing the outbreak in China is the same pathogen that they're attributing to causing this outbreak here in Ohio. Okay. So now here it says, what is Mycoplasma pneumoniae? The illness driving an outbreak in Ohio. China and Denmark have also reported outbreaks of Mycoplasma pneumoniae, a respiratory illness caused by bacteria. An Ohio county is experiencing a pediatric outbreak of pneumonia, including a number of pneumonia cases of Mycoplasma pneumonia. All right, you see that? Including a number of cases of Mycoplasma pneumoniae, the illness that has driven recent outbreaks among children in Denmark and in China. Now, I didn't know about the Denmark situation. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know about that. But apparently that's a thing. And in China, right? Now also in Ohio, which means in the United States. You know what I'm saying? So now here it says the Warren County Health District said Thursday that it has had an unusually high number of pediatric pneumonia cases this fall, 145 since August. So this is an unusually high number of pediatric pneumonia cases. Okay. The average patient is around 8 years old, according to the district, and the most common symptoms have been cough, fever, and fatigue. No deaths have been reported, and the illness are no more severe than in previous years, the district said in a news release. At the same time, cases of mycoplasma pneumonia have reached epidemic levels in Denmark and contributed to a surge of hospital admissions in China. Okay, so they have an epidemic, according to this news report, of this going on in Denmark, and they're surging hospital admissions in China. Okay, so now, you know, if I was the United States, I would, me personally, I would try to get a hold on this and get this under control. You know what I'm saying? Before it gets out of control. Taiwan's health ministry said Thursday that older adults, young children, and people with poor immunity should avoid travel to mainland China, Hong Kong, Maceo because of the rise in respiratory illnesses there, which would also include rises in flu, adenovirus, and RSV. Now, here's my thing, right? If you're going to advise people to not travel there, don't you think that it would also make sense to restrict people traveling from there to here? If you guys think that that would make sense, then give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't think that that would make sense, give me a thumbs down. See, if you're going to tell people, I don't think that you should go there because you might get sick, me personally, I would be filtering people who are coming from there because they might get people here sick. You know what I'm saying? To me, that would be the logical, sensible thing to do. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has been communicating with its colleagues in China to make sure that we're understanding the situation there. Its director, Dr. Mandy Cohen, said Thursday at a House Energy and Commerce Committee hearing. We do not believe this is new. This is a new or novel pathogen, she said. So this is the going belief as of right now. The ongoing belief as of right now is that this is not new, this is not novel, this is something that's routine, and it will be taken care of. We'll see. The Warren County Health District also said it didn't suspect a new or novel respiratory virus was driving the outbreak and noted that there had been zero evidence of this outbreak being connected to other outbreaks, either statewide, nationally, or internationally, which is interesting. Zero evidence of this outbreak being connected to other outbreaks, either statewide, nationally, or internationally. Now, here's my question. How do we verify that zero evidence? How do we look at this situation and say, okay, I'm looking at this situation, there's no evidence that we need to be concerned with? How do we do that? How does one do that? Does that make any sense? If you ask me, that's a difficult task. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to DC Precise. DC Precise says they've also been reporting a respiratory illness among the dog population, talking about social distancing your dog and whatnot. All this seems highly suspicious. Yeah, that's facts. My girlfriend was actually telling me about a disease that has really been hitting people's dogs hard. I haven't seen anything about it, like in my, media travels or my media journey. But if anybody does know anything about that, or if anybody comes across some articles, make sure you guys feel free to drop it on Discord, or tag me in it on Twitter, tag me in it on Facebook. And also, I know most of you guys who are in here probably do, but if you're somebody that is not subscribed to my other social media, make sure you guys take a moment, subscribe to my other social media, subscribe to my backup channels, subscribe to the Rumble channel, subscribe to Twitch, all of that good stuff, because you guys know how YouTube is. You never know when you're going to wake up and your channel will be gone. You know what I'm saying? So now here it asks the question, what is Mycoplasma pneumoniae? That's my question for you guys. How many people know what Mycoplasma pneumoniae is? If you guys know what it is, let me know in the comment section. Of course, it's a form of pneumonia, but what's special about it? What's special about it? Is there anything special about it? Mycoplasma pneumoniae is caused by a bacterium that can spread through droplets when an infected person coughs or sneezes. So I don't know how many people have ever had to do OSHA training for their job, but this would be something that you would take what's called droplet precautions for. How many people know the droplet precaution protocol? If you guys know the droplet precaution protocol, give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't know the droplet precaution protocol, give me a thumbs down. This particular kind of situation here would definitely be something that you would have to utilize droplet protocol for. Okay? Droplet precaution protocol. The bacterium can linger in the nose and throat without making a person sick, but people may develop pneumonia if it spreads to the lungs. Now, here's my question. How would it spread to the lungs? How would this spread to the lungs? You want to make sure that that doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying? Mycoplasma pneumonia is often a milder form of pneumonia, but its symptoms may last longer. Cases tend to peak every 3 to 7 years in the United States. It's sometimes referred to as walking pneumonia, which means you have pneumonia, but you're not sick enough to be in the hospital, says Dr. James Cottrell, an associate professor of infectious diseases at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas. So now, if it's one of these type of situations where you can still be functional, right? You're still able to be functional, but you're carrying the pathogen. What that means is that it will be very easy for you to spread, because in some situations, you may not even know that you have it. Know what I'm saying? Older kids and adults, initial mycoplasma infections usually resemble chest colds, and they may include sore throats, fevers, headaches, or worsening coughing that lasts for weeks to months, according to the CDC. So now it's very important to fully understand these symptoms, because a full understanding of the symptoms will be the first line of defense in helping you identify if you're suffering from something like this. Okay? You want to make sure that you know if you have this kind of situation going on. Okay? Children under the age of 5 often develop cold-like symptoms, all right? Such as sneezing, stuffy nose, sore throat, diarrhea, or vomiting. Okay? Young children are more likely to have severe cases that progress to pneumonia, particularly if their immune systems are weak or if they've never been exposed to the bacterium before. Symptoms of pneumonia, which include cough, fatigue, shortness of breath, fever, and chills, usually develop 1 to 4 weeks after someone is infected. So now another thing that people should do is, if they notice that they have some of these symptoms, then make sure that you try to keep track of when you notice the symptoms and how they're progressing. And also make sure that you go to the doctor. That's like the most important thing to do. Go to the doctor and get checked out. There's a lot of people that don't trust the healthcare system. I understand people not trusting the healthcare system because medical apartheid and all kinds of nonsense and, anti-Black practices in medicine. But one thing that you want to make sure that you do is have a healthcare practitioner that you trust. That would be something that would facilitate you being able to go see a medical professional. You know what I'm saying? And there's definitely medical professionals that you can meet that you trust. You know what I'm saying? You have to find them. You know what I'm saying? You got to shop around. You know what I'm saying? The World Health Organization said last week that China has reported an increase in children being hospitalized with mycoplasma pneumonia since May. Cases in Denmark have also risen since the summer, according to Statens Serum Institute, a Copenhagen-based research group that's part of the Danish Ministry of Health. It said Wednesday that mycoplasma pneumonia cases have risen significantly over the last 5 weeks. Denmark recorded 541 new cases in the week ending November 26th, more than triple the number recorded 3 weeks previously. Sweden, Switzerland, and Singapore have also recorded more than 100 cases each from April through September, according to a study published last week in the Lancet Microbe. So now they're going to ask this question, why are outbreaks happening now? And we've gone through 3 articles, and all 3 of these articles have given the same reason of why they feel that these outbreaks are happening now. So I'm going to ask you guys in the comment section, why do you all feel that these outbreaks are happening now? We know why they're happening now. You know what I'm saying? They gave us the reason in the article, and the reason that they gave actually makes sense. So the question that I got for you guys is, why do you all feel that they're happening now? Infectious disease experts said the outbreaks are the cause for increased surveillance, but not panic in the U.S. Okay. Now, here's my question. Do you guys remember when they had said that about C-19? If you guys remember when they had said that about C-19, give me a thumbs up. If y'all don't remember, then give me a thumbs down. There's nothing to suggest that this is a more dangerous strain of the bacteria, Cottrell said. There's certainly no evidence to suggest that this is a new bacteria. Experts say there are clear reasons the numbers are rising now. Okay, so here's the reasons why they claim things are rising now. First, countries traditionally have upticks in mycoplasma pneumonia every few years. So some outbreaks may be part of the seasonal ebb and flow of respiratory illness. All right, so they're attributing the first part to the disease cycle. Okay. It may be in places like Denmark that they were due for a cycle, said Dr. Amesh Adalja, an infectious disease physician and senior scholar at Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. Now, here's the thing, right? If they have epidemiologists over there, and if they have a department like the Centers for Disease Control or the WHO, then they should be tracking that stuff, and they should know what cycle they're on. So that shouldn't be speculation, because they should have all kinds of charts and time-lapse data that show exactly what's going on with the disease and how it's progressing versus how it's decreasing, right? There should be evidence of all that. That shouldn't be guesswork. You know what I'm saying? So now here it says fewer social interactions during the pandemic also meant the bacterium didn't have many opportunities to spread in recent years. Now that more children are interacting again at school and daycare and in other settings, some countries are experiencing a resurgence. Now, this makes sense. If you've socially isolated everybody and now everybody's back together and they're not wearing masks, not taking the hyper precautions that we were taking during the C-19 pandemic, then it makes sense that this kind of thing, especially being a droplet spread pathogen, would spread more. You know what I'm saying? So now here says China's outbreak in particular comes as little surprise given the country's stringent lockdown measures, said Michael Osterholm, the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota. They really did have a total shutdown of all the infectious diseases, Osterholm said. So I would have expected exactly what we're seeing right now. And again, I tend to agree with that assessment. Like, that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? That's not out of the realms of possible. Cottrell said some countries may have worse outbreaks than usual this year because many young children haven't been exposed to the bacterium yet and therefore lack immunity. The same is true for other respiratory illnesses like flu or RSV, he added. We're seeing increases in respiratory infections in general, but particularly it seems like mycoplasma, he said. It's just because we've got a larger pool of people who are more susceptible. Doctors treat mycoplasma pneumonia like other forms of pneumonia with antibiotics. However, only certain forms, such as erythromycin, are effective against it. Though the illness is relatively easy to treat, Osterholm said short staffing or a lack of pediatric beds in hospitals could pose threats this winter. Hospitals can be overwhelmed by what 10 years ago would have been normal amounts of patients, he said. Okay, and that's as a result of lower staffing and less access to resources. Why is that? Because when it comes to a lot of the government spending, a lot of times healthcare spending and education spending are the first on the chopping block to get axed. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, my question for you guys is, are you ready for the new menace coming out of China? Do you think that this will be a big issue? Do you think that it'll be a small issue? Should people start to prepare because they feel that it could develop into what developed out of the C-19? Let me know in the comment section. All right. If you guys have not smashed the like button yet, please take a moment, smash that like button. I appreciate every one of you guys for coming out. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I can't stop. I can't stop.